my calf. So my umpiring career is over. So I'm glad I'm here doing it from the comfort of a chair. So I don't think any soft tissue issue will be or injury will be happening today. So today, as part of Inspire, we really wanted to bring the learnings from people who know sport and know business or interface with business to the topic of conversation. And the real question to them is this: are there learnings that they've taken out of their career that we can apply as industry professionals? Is there preparation, recovery, discipline, all those great things that they applied in their sporting career and continue to apply in their sporting career that we can apply into our work as housing professionals? So that's what the real focus is today. Now, Donna Stolzenberg just messaged me. I just caught my attention, and we heard from Donna yesterday. The Victorian 2021 Person of the Year has broken her ankle recently. So Donna, my thoughts are with you. It's not as bad as a torn calf, mind you. So I just want to put that out there. So we have three panelists joining us today, three awesome people. And the first person I'm going to introduce, and I've got a bit of a script here because I don't want to go off script because this could be dangerous. So on script, the first person I want to welcome to our panel conversation today is Bianca Chatfield. You can see Bianca on her video there. She'll give a wave out. Now, who is Bianca? Now, she is a media presenter. She's a leadership consultant, and she was a contestant on The Block in 2018. So if her face is familiar, that could be the place. But she's a former Australian netballer. She debuted as an 18-year-old for the Australian Diamonds. She's done a whole bunch of stuff in netball at the international level. She's a real person. She's endured some tough times through her career, but enjoyed some great success, winning both gold and silver medals at the Commonwealth Games, a World Championship, alongside a host of premierships with the Melbourne Vicks. And she's a bit like Donna Stolzenberg, energy to burn since her retirement. In 2015, she's been on the block. Which was renovating the Gatwick in St Kilda. She now focuses her time in media and leadership space. She wrote a book in 2016 called Every Girl Needs a Plan. She's done some stuff with AHI last year around mentoring. Media personality. She's done a lot of stuff on TV, a lot of shows, etc., podcasts. You're a very busy human, Bianca, and we want to welcome you to our Inspire Summit today.
Thank you, Mark. Hope I didn't put anyone to sleep with that intro.
No, it's good. If anyone's going to put anyone to sleep, it's going to be me, Bianca. All right. So next, Brendan Joyce, who's on a sunny beach in the Whitsundays by the look of it. Brendan is a professional basketball coach. He's coached at all levels of the game. He's been to 3 Olympics with the Australian men's Boomer team and the women's Opals team, 2 World Championships for the Boomers. He's won bronze medal with the Opals in the World Championship. He's assistant coach of the Boomers at the Melbourne Commonwealth Games. He's been part of the gold medal team. He's a former professional basketball player himself. He works out at Ballarat at the moment, working with the Ballarat Miners, doing the head coaching, director of coaching, etc., as well as with director of coaching with the Chisholm Academy since 2017. Done a lot in sport, done a lot in leading people and complex teams, Brendan. And I want to welcome you to the AHI Summit from the sunny Whitsundays, which I think is /Ballarat.
Lake Windaree.
Yeah, Lake Windaree, there you go. Now, last but not least, Joe Roth joins us from sunny Canberra. He's the CEO of Canberra's largest medical charity, the John James Foundation. Joe's former rugby union player, Wallaby great. He's been part of a golden age of rugby for a long time. He's won a Bledisloe Cup, which is not too many Australian rugby players can actually attest to, particularly recently. He's also won 2 Super Rugby titles with the ACT Brumbies. Post-sport, went to Oxford University, spent some time there, and then transitioned into, professional life in the not-for-profit sector, and worked for organisations like Lifeline. He was the CEO of the University of Canberra Union, and then prior to joining the John James Foundation. Now, it's always risky to do a Wikipedia search on any of our panelists, and one thing that Joe probably doesn't talk about most was he was, in 2018, he joined a Canberra social mixed netball team called A New Hope. and the team was runner-up in the Division 3 finals, and he was voted the most valuable player for that season. So, Joe, I can't think of any better way to introduce you to the Inspire Summit, and welcome today.
Thank you, Mark. I can assure you, Bianca, it was a sad day when I retired from social mixed netball here in Canberra for everyone involved.
Yeah, hopefully there's footage. If we can find some of that, we will share it with our audience. So as we've done yesterday, for those of you who are on the call yesterday, really want to throw a lot of questions at these, three great people who've got some enormous experience to share with us all. So please put that into the chat box. I've got some questions that I've prepared overnight. My preference would be not to go through too many of those. Really want questions from the floor. But I'm going to open with just a really key one about influence and people who have impacted your lives both now and back in your junior years. Bianca, can I go to you first? Can we talk about role models and the people in your life that made Bianca Chatfield?
Oh, it is such a good question, and I'm sure the other guys, we can all relate in some way. I was very fortunate in, I made Australian teams and Melbourne teams really young. I was 16 and 18 years old when I started playing at the elite level. And I was so fortunate to be surrounded by very strong women who showed me the way. It's never easy being the first person, but when you are sitting behind other people who are older than you, and a lot of the girls in my first team for Melbourne were 10 years older than me, and I watched the way they behaved, I watched the way they trained, and they, as much as they would, make sure I was okay, they also were very happy to have a hard conversation with me when it needed to happen. And they demanded excellence. We had a very strong coach, but it was the players within that team themselves that demanded excellence when we were out there training. But when we were off the court, that's when you could have a bit of fun. And it took me a while to learn that balance, that you couldn't necessarily muck around while the coach was trying to yell at you out there on the court. But once I got to that level, it was honestly this group of 4 strong females that were the leaders of that club that taught me so much. And almost the fact that it was that, when you put on that Australian dress for the very first time, you don't own that dress. You are able to be in that position. You're a custodian of that dress for that moment in time. And it's what you do with it from then on is up to you. And so they were very much of the thought process that when you own that dress and when you have it on, that you make sure you leave it in a better condition than when you found it. And so that's around the behaviours and everything that you do when you're a part of that team, the way you act, the way you behave, the respect that you show. And I'm always forever grateful for those 4 strong leaders that I had in the team with me.
Yeah, brilliant, Bianca. It's interesting you should say that because this afternoon we've got James Kerr coming in from the UK talking about the legacy and the work he did with the All Blacks. Can I just ask you just a follow-up question, if that's okay? The handing of you the Australian netball uniform, the dress, as you say, can you share with us a time where you looked at that and said, it's not me, or I feel vulnerable, I feel like I'm potentially an imposter, I'm not sure if I'm good enough? Have you ever had any of those moments?
All the time, honestly. Probably it was my first year when I made it as an 18-year-old, and I thought, oh great, this is awesome, like I've made it so quickly. And it wasn't until after that first year that I started to realise how much work it takes to stay in that team. And I was in there because there was one of the players was pregnant, so she had 12 months off. So I was the young kid that had potential. Give this young kid a go, and in I go. And then from then on, it became a really hard roller coaster ride of the training and everything that you went through. But I think for me, the most important thing that I learned along the way was that you actually I didn't ever want to feel like I was an instant pick in that side. I actually thrived on the pressure, knowing that I always had to earn my spot. And I mean, from the first 50 test matches, I reckon, that I was in the Australian netball team, I sat behind Liz Ellis, who I'm sure a lot would know her name. And, I had to sit on the bench. So even though you're in the team and you get all this attention for being in the Australian netball team, I didn't play hardly any minutes on the court. I would go on tour for 3 weeks in England, not play 1 second, and I would just be pretty much training fodder. And so I found that a really hard time to you want to push and you want to get on the court, but you also, felt like you didn't belong there at all. And it took a long time to just find that right balance. And it took a long time to get there to also know that when you step out there onto the court, you've got to really use it as this kind of precious time that might not happen too often. So the more you get it, the more you make the most of it.
Yeah, brilliant. We might go there later, a bit about performance anxiety. But Joe, to you, role models as you grew into your career?
Yeah, really interesting listening to Bianca, and I like to think about the concept of the passing age, and to give you the context of that, my father taught me that and he tells the story about he was growing up and his father, they used to play tennis against each other, and as Glenn, my father, got closer and closer to beating my grandfather, he was about 15 or so, and he pushed him to 3 sets, and he thought that he was going to beat his dad for the first time ever. And then his dad put down the tennis racket and he said, "I'm retiring," and he never played again.
Crushed.
And the notion being that eventually we all get to a passing age, and I know I declare a conflict of interest here, Mark. I know your son, and I expect he's already passed you in terms of skill and capability on the Aussie rules field, and he's only 6. So everyone has their own passing age at different stages of their life. But translating that into my playing time, we had our 25-year reunion of the Brumbies last weekend. And so after 25 years, all of these guys came back together, and we were talking, and some of the guys who were older in the team, I was a little bit similar to Bianca. I joined the team at the age of 18. I was the youngest member of the squad. Some of the guys that were older in the team didn't go on to play for the Wallabies. However, the lessons that they taught the younger guys in the team were simply incredible. So the passing age, they would say, "Well, Joe, you went on and you leapfrogged and you went on to play for Australia. So your contribution was more than mine," or whatever it might be. But in my mind, that absolutely wasn't the case. And as we sat down around dinner and had a few glasses of red, I recall standing up and saying, it's the people that went before you that set the culture and the standard for the path that you walk yourself. I learned so much, and I will always respect the guys who were senior in the team who actually taught me what it meant to be part of a high-performing team, and you're forever thankful for that. And so when you translate that into business, I think there's still the best leaders are those who want people who are junior to them, who are better at their job than they are themselves, and are comfortable with that notion. They're comfortable that the people who they're managing or leading are going to have that passing age and that passing moment. And I think those leaders who are comfortable in their own self are at that notion of passing age become the best leaders, because those people who are being upskilled to be better than you or to move on to different careers will always be thankful for your willingness to teach them and to guide them and to mentor them and to show them the ropes. And I think that was the thing that I really enjoyed and appreciated most out of being the youngest player in a high-performing professional team.
Yeah, brilliant. And that's a great segue, Joe. Thank you. And we might go to you, Brendan, because you've played the role as the mentor, the coach, I suppose a leader as sorts inside sporting teams. But let's go back to your career, Brendan. What made Brendan from a role model perspective as you've emerged as an excellent coach?
Yeah, like both Bianca and Joe talked about family, and you don't know at the time the lessons you're learning, but now at our age we realise my parents are gone, so I think about it all the time. And I come from a big family of 7 kids. We actually didn't have a car, and it was just about surviving, really. In some respects, I didn't realise at the time. I thought my childhood was awesome, and I still think I did, but it was about putting food on the table. And I just recall Dad having 2 jobs, Mum taking care of us 7 kids and helping Dad with one of the jobs. So, at that point in time, obviously work ethic, I visualized that, saw that firsthand and experienced that, and without knowing that work ethic was pretty important. So the value systems was starting to build. And you talk about, like, my grandfather, he put his age up to go to the First World War at 16 years of age, and put his age down in the Second World War. And to go to the Second World War, obviously thinking he was saving the country. And, he had 4 kids of his own. One, obviously, Mum filled me in a lot about that. And he ended up a prisoner of war at Changi. So my recollection of him, he was a tough man, didn't have a lot of patience with us, but was big into discipline, didn't talk a lot about the war, but always talked about never giving up. And obviously, I fully understand that now and done the research about what those guys went through. So obviously an extremely resilient person to live to the age he did with what he went through. And I think about my coaches that I've had, some of you guys, I know Joe would be familiar, Bianca, with a guy named Barry Barnes, who had him in the early days, and big disciplinarian, tough guy. And, some of the things that went on back then, probably you wouldn't do today. So you learn from the coaches of what not to do today, or as much as what you do, but there's a lot of positives there as well. So I think the value system that's been passed down, and not just through Barry Barnes, another guy I'll never forget, who's no longer with us, always the optimist, the positive guy, Colin Cadee, who was his assistant. So I'm big into the optimism side of it and trying to always find the positive. So those guys, realistically, and Mum in particular, used to blow me away how she thought about herself. And I'd even say, Mum, look at, because she had to leave school at such a young age. And she'd say, I don't know if I'm that smart. I said, Mum, you're the smartest person I've ever met in my life. The advice you give me as I grew older. So, and just saw how she took care of everybody, the caring aspect, and unknown to her, what a leader she was. Similar to Bianca, an incredible woman when I look back.
Yeah. Brilliant, Brendan. Let me just ask you a follow-up question. We'll have a number of people on the call, but a number of people who will consume this panel conversation via recording later on, people who are leading other people. So I want to ask you a question in your unique situation of coaching prodigious talent and maybe really hard workers, and maybe both of those all at once. Can you talk to us about your way of communicating to your groups, any of your groups, over your coaching journey? Did you deliver on a certain style, or did you have to modify that at different times? What was your approach to how you engage with your athletes?
Well, coaching men and women, you have to modify certain things, I do believe. But, when I set out to coach the girls, I asked them, do you want me to be me or someone else? They said, no, be you. But in saying that, there are some differences. Obviously, the girls, tend to be a little bit more emotional and share their emotions outwardly. And, as far as communication goes, I always had a strategy on how I was going to communicate. Definitely always spent individual time with the player, regardless whether it's male or female, and talked about, first of all, how they are going as a person, and what, try to find out, not delve too much, but you'd find the more you built that relationship, the more players would open up, males and females. And then from the sporting side of point of view, set the goals find out what motivates them, what their goals are, and do those goals fit within what the team goals are. That's huge, because, I'd have a player walk in and say, from a basketball perspective, strategically, I'm going to get you 14 rebounds and I'm going to score 16 points. And I'd say, well, I don't know if you're going to be able to do that. And they say, no, that's what I'm going to do. I said, well, I don't think you're going to play enough minutes. You're not going to spend enough time on the court, but you're really important. We need you to look at this from a per minutes perspective. So in per minutes perspective, if you could grab, great rebounders, for example, get one every 4 minutes, or good rebounders, 3 every 3 minutes. And the Dennis Rodmans, if you follow basketball, the exceptional players get 2 every 2 minutes. So it's a matter of balancing out that goal setting. Not only with males and females, they'd have the same thing. They'd say the same thing. So just finding that balance and definitely spending individual time on communication. From a team perspective, in order to get individuals to buy in, they have to be involved. So a big part of I've actually got a plan that I work towards. We set a mission up together, just like a business plan. I operate on the team on a business plan. So we'll have a mission and a vision. We'll have goals, we'll have action plans, and we'll break them down from team to individual, and everybody's clear and there's clarity there. So that's how I function when I'm coaching teams. That's how I function if I'm in charge, like I was in charge of the Centre of Excellence with a group of people. And if you empower them, you get the buy-in. I think that helps the communication. It's a process. So we talk about the process of how we want to go about it. And then there's all the pieces that make up. So you talked about culture. One of you were talking about culture before. We can have all the strategies, we can have the plans, but then culture, to me, is above all that, because you don't have the right culture, that's not going to work either. So, and then there's leadership. So I'm just rattling off some of the